Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Haley Mitchell-Haugen. I'm the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. Today, we are here to celebrate the work of Tamara Madison and her collection, Morpheus Dips His Oar. And Tamara is joined by four amazing Sheila-Na-Gig online open mic readers. We have a powerhouse of women poets today with KB Ballentine, Wendy McVicker, Simona Carini, and Paula Lambert. So welcome, everybody. Very excited to have you here. I just want to introduce Tamara. Tamara Madison grew up near the fault line in the California desert. Her poems have appeared in Chiron Review, the Worcester Review, A Year of Being Here, and many other print and online journals. Several of her poems have been featured on the Writer's Almanac and the Lyric Life. She's the author of the full-length poetry collections Wild Domestic and Moraine, and the chapbook The Belly Remembers, all published by Pearl Editions. Along the Fault Line was published by Picture Show Press in 2022. And you could read more about her on her website, tamaramadisonpoetry.com.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, Haley, and thank you very much for publishing my book. It's got its orange things now. Okay. I'm going to begin with The Great Sea. A Buddhist once said each life is a river branching off a larger river, and every river flows in its own path to the great sea that is death. I imagine my parents in that sea, his bare arms pulling side stroke, pale legs scissoring the green tide, her in a flowered swim cap doing an Esther Williams churn, one stroke face down, one stroke up. I doubt they've even looked for one another there. Now each one visits me. Even on this chilly morning, I feel the circles of their separate embraces, hers close. I can almost feel her spirit breath, his wide as a ring of Saturn. Now they've swum off far into that sea. May it keep them ever cycling on its currents back to me. This next one is called, thank you, is called Mothers. Tonight, as the moon draws its arc through the stars and fog thickens on the bay, a hummingbird sits on her nest in the fuchsia plant, warming her one almond-shaped egg. My adult children, home for a holiday, strum guitars in the living room, and I wonder how many other mothers are here on this little plot of land. Possum, mouse, raccoon. There must be spider mothers here too, and mother worms. But I've seen this hummingbird, how she sits on her nest as though in a boat, sailing on the breezes of spring and into the fogs of night. I remember how I kept my own offspring warm in my womb as they turned into babies and then became the two adults making music in their childhood home. Soon, the egg will hatch and a tiny being will emerge, wet and scrawny, and it will grow so big that one day the nest will be too small and mother will move out, flying back every half hour to feed the hungry little beak. My children themselves have moved away. Now they're the ones who must fly back on holidays, guitars and laundry in hand, returning to the nest to nourish their mother. And this is about my mother. It's called Catching Children. My mother sketched in quick lines overlapping. Gradually, the subject emerged, like a Polaroid exposed to light. Most often, she drew people, sometimes children, though they moved so fast. Like fireflies, they had to be caught. Here's my daughter when her hair was fair in curls around her face, on a dinner napkin with the word caught and the date. Children not her own, even grandchildren, were a mystery to mother. But she could draw them, stilled like insects on flypaper, like butterflies pinned to a board, where they would be forever quiet and obey. This one is not about my mother. It's called Drawer, from UCSB, 1973. A few days after the seduction, he decides to talk to me, asks me to go to the clinic. Make sure there is no growth, he says. Now I'm looking up at the light. My knees are spread, and two women sit at the foot of my table. They carry on a lively conversation as they work. I'm not listening. I feel the warm light on my newly wakened netherworld, and the women begin to search inside me, as in a drawer. I imagine them pulling things out: bottle caps, old tires, tampons, of course, lipstick tubes, wrappers, leaves, a shred from 17 magazine. But I'm not so old, I want to protest. I've barely begun my collection. You're fine, they tell me, and hand me a prescription to make me bleed. Outside, it's raining. I sit in French class, staring out at the rows of eucalyptus dripping in their ragged bark, at the stream of bicycles hissing on the wet path. I watch him round the corner, as always at this time. Brown bike, beard trimmed, violin tucked under one arm, too old to be a student. This is called When the Mind Unwinds, for my sister. When the mind unwinds, memories lie in ruins. The bridges that once linked thoughts collapse into a jumble of rotting planks and broken pilings. When the mind unwinds, it can only go back and never forward. This is a time for unlearning. Whose house is this? Why are my things here? Who is that man who says he's my husband? When the mind unwinds, some memories stay lodged like shrapnel. Your mother's ring and her impatience, the house with 3 palms where you grew up, the time in high school when you parked the car on the tracks, daring it all to end. When the mind unwinds, it goes slick as an 8-ball, and everything new to it slides right off. But you're still in there, the core of you, bending like a reed in the storm of it, bending toward an ending. Alzheimer's just isn't nice. But I'll read this one because I love to read this one. This is called The Nicest Man. Near the end, all his fierceness is gone. Stroke softened, trembling from Parkinson's, mind veiled by dementia. This boulder of a man whose temper terrorized employees and family alike spends his days hunched before the TV watching MASH reruns and the Iran-Contra hearings. I've always been a Republican, but now I'm not so sure, he tells me. One morning, I find the TV tuned to PBS. Dad, you're watching Mr. Rogers. The frightening vehemence back in his face, he turns to me and growls, "That is the nicest man." This one, that was my dad. This is, again, my mother. Nature's Revenge. She pushes the boulder of her 10 decades back and forth to the bathroom, bemoans her glacial pace, the labor it takes to get up from a chair. I tell her, "You've lived a long life, Mother. This part is just nature's revenge." And we laugh. She has loved life. Life has loved her back. It's this love that keeps her pushing long past the time that her mind decided she should go. She wonders what awaits her in her new dimension. Surely more than this. Today, she says she doesn't want any food, even as she opens her mouth to the spoon. Voyager. 1. You were like the last leaf, gone, from green to autumn red, that clung to the vine into December, just because it did, through sun and rain and wind, until finally a strong gust sheared you off, and you were gone. 2. When you left this world, you abandoned your body like a dress tossed aside after a night of dancing. I imagine you, a spark launched skyward, a comet fording the dark ocean of the universe. You don't have to call to me, Voyager. I will join you in my time. They say deep peace will guide you on your journey into the sea of everything. 3. You used to wonder about the soul, where it goes, what it is. You asked a holy man once, imagining a world without the body's needs. I think that's where we're headed, his reply. You laughed about that for years. You like to think the departed stay close, watching, guiding. So when you were leaving, I could only be happy for you. You're going to find out all about it, Mama. 4. But you are gone now. I wait to feel you near, to hear your spirit voice. You left behind the earthly you. Your scent lingers among the clothes I took from your closet. Your old concerns breathe among your typewritten pages and canvases where a younger you laid down your visions in paint. All that's left of you now is everything that's missing. Sacrament. To ford the river of wild mustard, we lift our knees like drum majors, marching through tangled undergrowth. We bathe in the gold dust of it all, the dog's black coat flecked with pollen, even after the ride home. I think of all the microscopic organisms we carry on and in our bodies as we walk among the still flowering, now towering plants. Welcome all of this into my hair, to my clothes, to my lungs, taking in the sacred body of earth. This is Night Journey, where the title of my book comes from. Into the calm flowing river, Morpheus dips his oar. Each dip makes a ring that circles in moonlight behind us. Across the water's quiet face, the belly of sleep's canoe draws a vanishing seam. My dreams unspool along the shadowed shore. I'm going to tell you about the guys who work inside my head, who clearly were not well today. I don't know their names or gender, or whether they even have a gender. I forget they're even there, like I forget a name, a fact, a necessary detail. I only have to wonder aloud and move on to another thought when I feel a little tap on my shoulder or sense the presence of a calm being behind me. And there he is, or she, or it, handing me a folder wrapped in a metaphor containing the datum I couldn't bring to mind a short time ago. Then I can go on living, assured that my mind still works, that the guys in there have not run off to serve a younger or more facile mind, that they're with me still in their khakis, button-down shirts and wire-rimmed glasses, poised to run to the file box, where they know just where to find my username and password, the place where we took that photo with the sea crashing behind us, or the name of that actor. You know, the guy who starred in that movie with that actress, you know, the pretty one with the wide smile and the shining teeth. Earth's mercy. We ride Earth's back, but she doesn't buck us off, rather. When she shudders, we feel it. When she bucks, things fall. We know that Earth worse can happen, that we are at her mercy. But Earth has no mercy, no desire. We are at the mercy of life's unspooling wire. We've no more power than the sea has over fire. Flesh remembers. They chopped down the sycamore. I watched a man feed the tree's weeping flesh to a grinder. Flesh so red, I expected bone to poke out, white, accusing. When they pruned the pine tree, they hacked the branches, leaving each one red on the end, welling with sap that fell to the ground like tears. I tripped over a stump by a campfire last summer. The gash on my skin was a chasm bleeding black in the dark. My flesh remembers that camping trip. Cold rushing water, nights bright with stars, redwoods like gigantic buildings, my companion asleep at nightfall, and me in the dark, wet flesh weeping. To my neighbor with the plastic lawn. Your plastic grass is no match for the Bermuda grass that woke from memory's sleep, found purchase in the lip of soil that edged around the plastic seam, and now climbs over what is fake and clean, and spills dry spindles in a swell of dusty green. Your plastic grass can't smother all that sleeps inside the soil, but even so, your plastic grass will one day have the last and loneliest laugh. When all of us have gone to dust, your plastic lawn will rise in wiry strings from the sod, triumphant and immortal as a god. The happiness of birds. Around the lake, old men cast lines into green water. The sun sparkling on the lake is their catch. Coots arrive, pumping green legs through green water, young ones sailing behind. I want to tell the mothers, they hurt you when they enter this world. They hurt you again as they leave your side. But the coots, with their black velvet heads, swim calmly across the channel. They have no use for happiness. I really appreciated hearing some pandemic poems earlier, and this is one. Sunset in the Time of Plague. Like the Sacred Heart of Dali's Jesus, throbbing for the love of man, today's last rays glow red with the tallest stack of vapor. Rain falls in a gray sheaf to the sea, and all around the budding world prepares, unafraid, for night. I return to my home, wash hands with hope, shelter this fearful, tender body, still filled with that sunset, that cloud, that painting. Jesus's heart throbbing in his sacred chest, full with love for man, even as the earth turns away and darkness lays its heavy comfort on the land. And I like to end with moon bathing. 1. My mother showed them to me, tiny moons blooming at the base of each fingernail. I would lie in bed then, counting my moons. This morning, the remains of last night's near full moon balance on a cluster of palms at the edge of the sky, its crown the same pale white as the moon at the base of my thumb. 2. Last night, the moon glowed waxy white. It lit my path from gate to my door, and I thought, this is bathing. The full moon bathes the sky in milky light. Sometimes I want to slip outside naked and bathe in moonlight, the way I did as a girl. But now I have neighbors. 3. Mornings when I see the moon still in the sky after I've spent hours dreaming and forgetting, it's like seeing my mother again, her head tilted fondly, her half smile asking, "Did you sleep well, honey?" And I tell her, "Yes, mother, I did." Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Tamara. So wonderful to finally hear these poems that I know so well on the page. So thank you so much for everything. I'm going to switch now, move into our open mic readers. So KB, welcome. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm excited about this. All right. All 3 of these pieces that I'm going to read have been published in Sheila-Na-Gig. Fantastic publication. I just love working with all of you guys. It's great. So thank you for offering these open mics for us. All lost things. An agony of clouds stutters the blue, rain skipping past again, summer's dry breath coughing clouds of dust. Each day I choke, parched in the emptiness of this room. Oaks and poplars lean, clutch their green as yellow veins through leaves. Boxwood browns and splits, hydrangeas stoop to kiss the cracked earth, bees husbanding morning dew. Gather, keep, gather and keep. Crows yap and lurk, masked in shadows until the heat swells, grass a knife edge underfoot. Even cuts won't bleed, seeds that gel obstruct my lungs. Banks of grit slip toward the shriveling lake, where willows cradle Canada geese and mallards rustle cattails, webbed feet etching the dust. A trail like the sound of stars guiding you home. This next piece, thank you, is family personal. So it's called Every Scar Has an Edge. Wind-bruised oaks welcome warbler-kissed dawn. Last night's wolf moon covered with cloud and flurries. Mounds shroud the bushes, the house, yard an unbroken desert of white. My uncle called, haunted by his long-dead wife, daughter becoming her eternal roommate. The 2 of them whispering in his ear, in flaming dreams. But here are the bluebirds, the lark, night's elegy on their tongues. Not every goodbye offers closure. River birch sloughs its bark as snow dissolves its damp path to the ground. And it comes back to this, a squirrel leaping for a limb, starlings gleaming near the feeder, a candle still burning after last night's storm. All right, thank you. And this one is Catching Light with a Net. Blue ghost fireflies and grandmother's teapot haunt my porch, frogs and crickets once again saturating the night with song. This year the cicadas will join in, 17 years since last we heard their cadence. Grandmother's only been gone 11 this Thanksgiving. Family holidays always at her house. Warm Florida sun soaking our skin. When I first moved to the mountains, I lost the flat horizon. It didn't take long for hues and tints to wash my senses, more than sea and sand in my new color wheel. Spring and autumn evenings alive here, they vibrate, infuse the air. Salt heals, but there are only so many shades of blue. Rock, not water, connects this hard-packed soil. My grandmother rarely asked for anything. Daughter of the Depression, her family grew or made all they had. When I told her I was traveling across the pond, she bounced on her toes, said she'd always dreamed of owning a blue and white china teapot. I explored London's clustered sidewalks and stores until I found the perfect porcelain, cradled it all the way home. Grandmother sipped tea on the lanai, savored it with orange and lemon dawns. The year before her memory failed, she gifted items to each of us. The teapot was one of mine, small cracks webbing the glaze. Now I breathe its steam, careful of the chipped lid, watching blue ghost fireflies ignite the night, cicada wing and husk scattering the porch, both as elusive as grandmother's smile, as bright and loud as her love. Thank you.
That was gorgeous. What an evening this is. I feel honored to be part of it. I have to catch my breath. So I'm Wendy McVicker from Athens, Ohio, and it has been my deep pleasure to have several poems published in Sheila-Na-Gig online. I agree, a beautiful publication. I love hearing poems here that I have read on my screen, you know. So I'm going to start with one that's in the summer issue. It is called My Mother and the Piano. She was tiny. The piano was huge. She was pale, her eyes the blurred translucency of ice. The piano was dark, an eater of shadows. Her hands on the keys had purpose. She stroked ivory, unable to bring herself to stroke skin. Once she knelt and hugged me, just after she'd filled the house with gas. The piano brooded, silent in its corner. It could not save us.
Wow, it's really good.
And so I have a collection of some poems that relate to this history. And I'm going to read you one of those. It's called When I Was Alone. When I was alone, I knew how to hold stillness close to my heart. I knew how to wait, one way to be safe. Running is another, not my way. In the story, the doe broke and ran across the clearing. That's when the gun found her. That's how I learned to be still. That's how I learned to wait. And thank you. And this one is an ekphrastic poem, actually, and I no longer remember where I saw the picture, but you'll see it. It's called The Submerged City. In the submerged city, a woman in red floats, suspended, her hair coiling above her like living tentacles. Pillars with ornate capitals hold up a ceiling we cannot see. What brings her and us here to the ruined city? What flood, loosed by river or sea, took over this land, remade it in water's own image? Water, the God that lives within us all, made the world we came from, the world that reclaims us with every rainfall, every rising tide. I know there are places that suffer drought today, the earth cracking, the unblinking sun bleaching color from the world, burning all it touches. Maybe that's why this image soothes, its abundance of water, the way the woman seems to float at ease in her red dress, her eyes closed in apparent peace, and the way that water clouds the walls, a promise of resurrection and life, a promise to cool every thirsting throat. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for this beautiful reading. Thank you, Haley, for having us. My name is Simona Carini. I have a collection of poetry that was published by Sheila-Na-Gig Editions a few months ago, and it's called Survival Time. I'll read a couple of poems from it, but I will start with the poem that was published in the summer edition of Sheila-Na-Gig, and it's called Alive. On February 7, 2023, two massive earthquakes struck southeast Turkey and northwest Syria. On the floor, an ant carries a dead ant. Left, right, frantic, unsure where to drop it. On the screen, people carrying injured, dead, all wrapped in grief. Buildings collapsed in Kahramanmaraş. Dust covers all. A shroud grays out rescuers' bright clothes. A man, orange clad, sits on piled rubble, left hand holding his daughter's hand, her body crushed, her body buried, crushed. At home, I see the photo, the man's gaze. I rush outdoors, run, fill my lungs until they hurt. I look for green shoots pushing through coffee dark earth towards light. Get drunk on colors and air, blue and clouds, egret's flight. 3 days on, a 3-year-old pulled out alive. So my next poem, again, is from the collection Survival Time. And so last week we started having fires, serious fires in California. We had a major, in Northern California, we had a major lightning storm and ignited a lot of fires in California, Northern California. So I'm reading a poem called The Burnt Forest, and this burnt forest is actually in Chile. Ashen trunks, bare branches loom above an expanse of shrubs and saplings, the graveyard of the ancient forest, killed by a man-lit fire. The trail skirts Lake Scottsburg, a sheet of silver under the overcast sky, a mirror for the Cuernos del Paine, godlike peaks of pale granite topped with dark sediment. A rumble rolls down the rocky flank, ice shifting out of sight. I hike past trees standing as their own tombs. Imagine them before, dressed in dark green foliage. I once walked with my father along the pebbled path of his village's cemetery, lined with cypresses. Crosses, marble slabs, photos revealing the faces alive. Between the mountains and the water, the wooden skeletons and scars. A single person inflicted this injury, and flames froze them as though in prayer. And my last poem is about Venice. We tend to have conversations about Venice with other fellow poets of Sheila-Na-Gig, and I thought I would read a poem about Venice that was in my collection. And this was written during the pandemic, so it's called Remembering Venice. Sabella Venezia, soft voices in the local sing-song dialect. In the canals, the water is clearer. Does it still reflect lights on its inky surface at night? Locked down like the rest of Italy, the city is quiet. No one walks along Calli across its campi. Are chandeliers alight in the palace's frescoed rooms? Under San Mark Square's deserted arcade, rare steps resound like castanets. Murano glassware lie in shadow in shuttered stores. Waves lap against the fondamenta. No gondolieri call out "Oe" at canal crossings. No friends sit outside the bakery in the quiet hour laughing loudly over glasses of spritz. I will visit Venice again. Arrive at sunset, fuchsia and dark orange lighting the city, floating on a lilac mirror, the water calm as an alpine lake at dawn. I will inhale the lagoon's briny scent, bathe in the radiance of rosy light reflected on windows, dusk slowly clothing La Serenissima in silence. Emotion will be fierce, like on my last day there, a bright October Sunday. I walked from first light until sunset wrapped the city in pink lace. I walked at night, listened to water, church bells, whispers. Memories guide me through darkness to morning light, reflected on Punta della Dogana's golden sphere, flashing. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Paula J. Lambert, and I'm reading in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm going to start with a poem from the summer issue of Sheila-Na-Gig. I'm always so happy to be associated with Sheila-Na-Gig. It's such a great organization. So thank you. And this is called How to Trust the Moon Chicken. Why did the chicken cross the road? Because Chicken saw something fit to pursue. Chicken yearns, and his commitment to what he yearns for is steadfast. Maybe some sweet hen, maybe a rooster, maybe a future or a chance to escape the farmer's axe. Chicken's eyes are always ahead of his gait. Head thrusts forward, long neck locks into place, and while his vision comes fully into focus, one foot follows another, catching up. The better question maybe is why Chicken didn't look back, why no one taught him what a boundary was, or that journeys like his have consequences. Maybe Chicken, spared of the axe, and who may have left hen and a couple of eggs behind, saw only the sun rising and falling and wanted to know where it went. Maybe he saw the moon and dreamt the word derivative. Maybe he woke afraid. Maybe he saw the greener pasture, luxury condos, a convertible passing him by. But listen, Chicken's eyes are stuck in their sockets. His brain extends to his neck. Had he not escaped the farmer's axe, he might still have crossed that road. He might have remembered a former life, some part of his past he couldn't quite grasp, tsunami's wave heaving skyward, earth giving way beneath his feet, the scream of a siren right when the world went black. Ask this, how life propels him forward, why he goes and keeps going despite the roar of doom and terror that hits him along the way, how he follows the light where it lands, how to trust the moon, and why, when he so often wants to cry, he so often laughs instead. And this is Reign of Animals. In Texas, fish pelted the pavement, less stunned than the men who'd found them in the parking lot. They'd come a long way, the fish. It was a hell of a ride, lifted from the sea by a force no fish brain could possibly have fathomed, slapped down dead at the used car dealership on Summer Hill Road. The men who gathered, trying to figure out what in the name of sweet baby Jesus could have happened, were at a disadvantage, never having been lifted themselves, knowing plenty about plagues of frogs and knowing plenty about plagues of frogs and locusts, but next to nothing about fishes come without loaves. They'd heard that crack of thunder 5 days past Christmas, 2 days before the new year. Fish were dropping here and everywhere, they'd told the reporter, not knowing what to say except what was obvious: broken fish bodies starting to stink up their shoes. The smell stayed with them all day, and now, after saying prayers and shivering in the cold that came with the storm, they stared at the ceiling, wishing they'd been away to close those damn fish eyes, staring like they'd seen the face of God. And they guessed the fish had, and they guessed that that was blasphemy, and they guessed the fish had gotten what they deserved. So they closed their own eyes and curled up closer to their wives, women who'd been staring at the ceiling for weeks, who were pretty sure they knew what those fish had been through, and pretty sure they hadn't seen God. And this is spring. The strange beast of the night has retreated. Hackberry down, no more damage than that, and the echoing tinnitus you woke with, B flat, constant, dull. The wind's wild paw, which took out a city west of here, left the fence intact. Small favor. Elsewhere, children are dead. The storm, sure, the anguished shooter. Pockets of silence everywhere in the aftermath. You calculate, chainsaw, chipper, enough mulch to cover the peonies, the lilacs, the hydrangea and rose of Sharon, sure to follow. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Paula. Really, really amazing. If you're making a chapbook of chicken poems, you know where to send them, right? I love chicken so much. I just love chicken. Right. You've been listening to Paula Lambert, KB Ballentine, Wendy McVicker, and Simona Carini reading from Sheila-Na-Gig Online Summer 2023 issue, and Tamara Madison celebrating the publication of Morpheus Dips His Oar. You can find us at Sheila-Na-Gig blog.com. Thanks for being here.